It is really hard to find a quiet place to record here on Granville Island. So what I'm going to try is to have a video that's more interesting for you to look at than me trying to hold my phone steady, and I will talk in the background and I'll see how that works. So what you see in the background are the little ferries that can take you back and forth from downtown Vancouver to Granville Island, where the Writers' Festival takes place. A very cool way to travel. Anyway, the event that I just saw was Douglas Stuart in conversation with Eddy Boudel Tan. Douglas Stuart is a gay Scottish author. He wrote Shuggie Bain and Young Mungo, and Eddy Boudel Tan is an Asian Canadian author. His most recent novel is The Rebellious Tide. It was a fantastic conversation. So many things. One that really struck me was Douglas Stuart said he did not read until he was 17. He didn't read books. He said there were about 250 kids in his school in his year, and when they turned 16, most of them left. So there were only about 12 students after that to finish out their schooling. And so he was under more teacher scrutiny, and he ended up turning to books. Another thing he said was that his mother taught him how to knit when he was very young, and that's how he ended up becoming a professional knitter and fashion designer. So his former career before he was a writer. He said the craft of textiles taught him to have patience with his writing. And he also said that for him, writing is a way to chart his passage on this earth. I really liked that. Eddy Boudel Tan asked him about the phrase, "make a man out of you," that comes up several times in Young Mungo. And Douglas Stuart said this phrase always struck him with terror. He heard it a lot, being gay in a masculine culture and trying to hide his vulnerability and gentleness when there's a very narrow idea of masculinity. He said the women in his novels don't love themselves, and so the darkness and dysfunction comes out of that. He's been criticized by literary critics, I guess, who say, oh, there's another alcoholic mother at the heart of this second novel. And Douglas Stuart said that's a very classist view, because he says he came from a community where many mothers were alcoholic. And the two mothers in these books, Agnes and Maureen, are very different from each other. He also said that he thinks he has more compassion for Maureen in Young Mungo, that's Mungo's mother, than many of his readers seem to. He also said that he wrote Young Mungo before Shuggie Bain was published. So he says when you win the Booker, the first question people ask you is, when is your next book coming out? And he'd already written one. He said that his books are about belonging and care and love and trying to fit into a community. It's true that working class Glaswegians have a solidarity, but the cost of that solidarity is conformity. So it just doesn't work for people who don't fit in, like queer boys. He said that real people who are like Agnes Bain, Shuggie Bain's mother, have taken the novel to heart and are pleased to see themselves in literature. And he said, we just don't listen enough to working class mothers. Oh yeah, one last thing. Douglas Stuart said, people say I'm a Dickensian writer, but I've never read Dickens. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much for listening.